comments. Seventh agenda item is unscheduled public comments, and the same directives hold true. Please keep this time to 3 minutes. And first up tonight is Mr. Joe Anderson, here to speak about accountability.
My name is Joe Anderson, and tonight I want to address the need for accountability and justice. The city must be accountable to do justly by its citizens, and equally, the citizens, especially those of us who choose to stand behind this microphone, must do justly.
Mr. Anderson, could you give your address as well?
Oh, sorry, of course. 4061 South Cherokee Street.
Thank you.
And equally, the citizens, especially those of us who choose to stand behind this microphone, must do justly by our city. I'm here to correct an injustice that happened at the last city council meeting. In the last regular council meeting held on February 19th, J.J. Margiotta posed the question, who has the city just hired to audit EAF? He thought he had an answer. Clifton Larson, he said, the same firm that let $53 million slip through their fingers in Dixon, Illinois in 2012. Thing is, that's not true. Who has the city just hired to audit EAF? No one. Clifton Larson isn't even one of the 3 firms being interviewed. If Clifton Larson is as bad as JJ thinks, he ought to be thanking this council for voting not to hire them in March 2018 when the initial EAF and EMRF audit came before council. Now, personally, I like JJ, and then one time I had an extended conversation with him. I found him to be a very reasonable person. I think he might be surprised to find that I ally with him in a number of different ways. I think it's appalling that he needed a variance to sell motorcycles from his property, and he should have been able to do that without interference by right from the very beginning. I think businesses like his are important to our city, and I would like to see more like them. If I still had my motorcycle, I'd take it to Knuckleheads for repairs. On February 19, however, JJ falsely accused our city government of mismanagement. As responsible citizens, we can't be slandering our city employees, council. Before we get behind this microphone, we as citizens have an obligation to do our due diligence. 1 year ago, the fire marshal hired Clifton Larson to conduct a non-financial audit of their building inspection process. This had nothing to do with the EAF audit. Charter doesn't even require council approval for something that small. Hence, it never came up at council. Apparently, that's what JJ misunderstood, and he really could have done more homework. And when it comes to Englewood's similarities to Dixon, Illinois, where they lost $53 million, the fact is that Dixon did have a problem, a lack of oversight built into their form of government. So after the fraud was discovered, they switched to a council manager form of government with built-in separation of powers and built-in accountability. The same form of government we've had here in Englewood since 1958. Englewood is not like Dixon. Dixon is growing up to become like Englewood, and good for them. The city of Englewood has problems, but they aren't the problems of Dixon, Illinois, circa 2012. They're the problems of Salem, Massachusetts, circa 1692. We need to stop the slander. I hope JJ will stand before this council to admit that he made a mistake and unnecessarily slandered our city leaders as a result.
Your time is up. Thank you. Seeing no questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Ms. Cian Dickerson.
Cian Dickerson, 2835 South Pennsylvania. The Code Enforcement Advisory Committee has done nothing legally or procedurally wrong and has followed the enabling legislation as explained and confirmed by the city attorney. Supporting facts. There has been no charter violation. Paragraph 32 applies only to council and carries no penalty or ability to penalize. And I hope you can read that. It's a lot smaller than I expected it to be. No interference with police officers, therefore no charter violation. State law permits videotaping of public buildings and peace officer actions and interactions. The Title 15 identifies code enforcement to document by photos and or videotaping for violations and nuisance complaints. The citizens who have come before SEAC were welcomed and have been highly critical of code enforcement and its service delivery. Only one very recently was disruptive, refused to wait for public forum, and had to be removed by the police liaison. Code enforcement is and always has been the number one problem, according to citizens, confirmed by the council-mandated expensive citizen satisfaction survey. What can or is accomplished by stopping the committee on such specious and inaccurate allegations or any change in the enabling legislation, except denying citizens the right to question and or making it more difficult to express their concerns? The current committee has done what it was enacted to do, but the prior committee was neutralized and not functional since 2008 until 2017. This was never more apparent than in 2011 when the council majority forced a vehicle code through the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee and passed that ordinance despite hundreds of protests. Citizens revolted and within a few months overturned that ordinance by a huge margin. Citizens of Englewood, you need to be aware and understand that this action, suspending the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, is letting police and code enforcement and staff run this city without any check or oversight, and it's therefore dangerous to our constitutional rights, especially our property rights. For the time being, citizens will need to bring their concerns directly to the city manager and council in droves. Be aware, speak up. Don't be afraid to speak before council despite the blatant attempts by council to silence its critics. If you want more information or facts on the work of SEAC and other committees and laws and ordinances and links, contact Englewood Watchers at gmail.com or Englewood Cares website, a Facebook website. And I had that, trying to get it.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay.
Janet. Next up is Ms. Vicki Hoffman.
Good evening, Council. I have no speech written for you tonight. A week ago,
Could you state your name and address,
Vicki
please?
Hoffman, 4630 South Bannock. A week ago, I emailed Director DeAndrea about our utility bills, and I also provided you with those bills. And according to the sewer fee, because our house and others, I don't know, I can't tell you who, we pay approximately $117 extra a year for an IBA charge of $450, a sewer fee of $54.29, and a South Sanitation Englewood bill for $32.57, which equates to $117-ish a year. Why am I and others being charged a district storm fee, and we live in the city of Englewood? We've lived in this house for 4.5 years, and for 4.5 years we've always wondered why our water bill was a lot higher. Our utility bill, sorry. So I emailed you. I haven't heard back. I started a petition because I need a pipe in the alley. I had the good fortune of Council Member Barentine joining me last week, I believe, down our alleys, and looked at my house, at our house, and, you know, I'm frustrated. Nobody answers me. I try to provide you solutions. I sent you an email the other day about South Glen. Nobody ever answers me. Director DeAndrea didn't answer me. Dave council member requested that he was checking into something, so thank you. But, you know, at what point in time is this okay? What point in time is this acceptable? You know, I used to be in corporate management, and it was the norm and the expectation that phone calls or emails should be responded to within 24 hours. I'm still waiting. Nobody ever emails me. Nobody ever calls me. Y'all think I'm just, you know, a PETA, and I'm not here to do that. I want Englewood to be good, but I know that the rainy season's coming, and I need a pipe in the ground. And what is it going to take to get a pipe in the ground? Another life? You might want to check out next door, too, which, you know, we had a healthy discussion. There was 163 comments about the conditions of the alleys, and it was a reasonable conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no questions. Next up is Mr. Jerry Walker, here to speak about police.
Jerry Walker, 4180 South Pearl Street, Englewood. Sent in some open records requests here lately, and I keep seeing coming back from the police department that because I was almost involved in an accident, along with 3 other people, on Broadway late at night by a police car that was doing about double the speed limit, that's swerving through traffic with no emergency lights on. And I came to find out that that was a personnel matter. My question is, where is that line between a personnel matter and a criminal matter? If you belong to the police department here, you can kind of do what you want. You can go out to the rifle range, shoot some incendiary rounds, set the rifle range on fire, charge the city about $6,000 to pay for that fire, and it's a personnel matter. So where's that line drawn where police become responsible for what they do, not just to the police department, and we don't know what a personnel matter gets you in form of a consequence, but how about to the citizens? How about if a citizen sees a police officer breaking the law, that the police just, they bury it? It's a personnel matter. Don't worry about it. Is murder a personnel matter? We're hoping that murder is not a personnel matter. We're hoping that maybe that's above the line, but we don't know where the line is. Is speeding a personnel matter, or is it a criminal matter? Well, if I do it, it's a criminal matter. If you do it, it's a criminal matter. If it doesn't, it's a personnel matter. So where's the justice in this city? I mean, if they'll give me, I'd be glad to, you know, I can probably find a uniform and a badge someplace, and maybe it's just I could claim it's a personnel matter. I don't know, where's that line? And I guess maybe it's up to city council maybe to study that and find out where that line is. Now, I know the police are coming back again for more money tonight. They keep coming back for more money. They put bulletproofing in their wall because they're afraid somebody's going to shoot at them. You call a cop, you get 3. Why don't we put all 3 in one car instead of having 3 cars show up? Can a police officer go to a call by himself? Or is it a personnel matter? So police department is running the city dry of money. I mean, we gave them $28 million. By the time we added the interest, it was like $50 million. They've spent that, and the place is not finished yet. So maybe they're just out of control, or maybe they are in control. And maybe it's the city council that's out of control. Because what I understand about the city, you're the ones that run things in the city, but doesn't seem to happen. It seems like the police department's running things in the city. Any questions?
Councilmember Wink has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Walker, are you saying that under no circumstances should emergency vehicles, to include police forces, increase the speed in their motor vehicles?
If he turns his emergency lights on, I will get out of the way. He can go as fast as he can. The vehicle we're talking about had no emergency lights on whatsoever. He was headed to the 7-Eleven.
Can I,
I have 3 other witnesses to that.
can I follow up?
Do you have another question?
Yeah, follow up. Are you in complete understanding of the full law that govern the police and the use of their equipment and their judgment calls that they need to make at different times? I know I'm not, but I wondered.
May I give you an
case-
example?
In case we're missing something that maybe I don't know.
May I give you an example?
It was just a yes or no question. I don't want to take up the whole night.
Well, I've been charged with disrupting a meeting that I never got into. Kathleen Bailey was not charged because
So,
the police
Mr.
officer told me I
Walker-
couldn't charge her.
So sorry, I want to keep us on topic.
All right.
I asked about your knowledge of police law, and now something else is coming up. I'll withdraw my question.
Member
Thanks, ma'am.
Barentine has a question for you as well.
You said that it was a personnel issue. How do you know that it's a personnel issue? I would assume that you made a complaint. Did you file a complaint and get an answer back from the police department?
I filed a complaint, so did 3 other people, with a Colorado Open Records request, and the message that we got back was that it was a personnel matter.
Okay, so they did respond, and that's the information that you're providing.
The information they provided.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Tammy Williamson, here to speak, I believe, about BNB.
Hi, Tammy Williamson, 4198 South Washington. Last time I was here, I was going to give you guys information on how you can stop the advertising for the nuisance Airbnb next door to me. I sent that email twice, and I don't know if anyone got it. No one responded to it, so I'm wondering if I have to send it again. And that was pretty much it. Also, I did get a police report that I was able to send to a few people that I had on the top of my head. There has been assaults at the Airbnb next door. 2 women were brutally beaten, and her car was stolen. And this was in the presence of the owner. I'm wondering how much longer this nuisance is going to go on before somebody stops hyper-focusing on whether Airbnb should be allowed and start focusing on a nuisance property next door to me that's been going on for 1.5 years. Thank you.
Councilmember Russell, or Mayor Pro Tem Russell has a question for you.
Did you get a copy of the police report of the assault?
Yeah, I believe I sent it to you as well.
Okay. Was it just in the last few days or?
It was today that I.
Today? Okay, I haven't had a chance to look at that. I will check that out. Thank you.
Councilmember Barentine also has a question, and then I think Mr. Cuesta does as well.
I would like to do a council request to get some information on the advertising piece of this. There is a sign.
Councilmember Barentine, this is a time to ask questions of the actual.
Well, I don't want to ask it directly of her because I don't think she knows. I'd like it to be a council request on the advertising piece of it because I'm not sure whether that's legal or not. There are actually signs out in front of some places advertising. So we have to come back with some information on whether we have the authority to call some agency and tell them they can't advertise. So I just want to address your issue. So if
Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you, Mayor.
You have a
Thank
question?
you, Ms. Williamson. I did receive an email regarding the assault, and I received that email today, and the assault described as awful. It sounds very violent and very public. You mentioned that the assault wasn't within the past few days, though. It was just that you received a report within the past few days, or there was an additional assault as well?
The assault happened last February,
Thank you.
and I didn't know about it until now.
Thank you. I appreciate Ms. Williamson, and I'll discuss that further in Councilmember's choice. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Right, this ends our unscheduled public time. Now is a time for a council member to respond to the public comment. Tonight we have Councilmember Wink in line to do that. So Councilmember Wink, would you please help us with any council requests or any response to these?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all who came to address our council this evening. they're now gone, but as Mr. Graham, Mr. Golden mentioned during their shared public comment slot, these days, perhaps more than ever, it's our cities will flourish more based on the input from all of us, the citizens, business owners, all of us in the community. So I encourage you all to continue to share your insights, your ideas, your informational pieces with us in this way. One specific point I do want to address is the comments shared by Mr. Anderson. He is indeed correct that this 7-member council did not hire Clifton Larson to conduct the upcoming EVE audit. Thanks, Mr. Anderson, for doing your research and for sharing the real details with our public. I think we all mean well and want the best for our city, and for that and for the good of this city, I appreciate the clarification. I have one council request I believe I've taken from what we've heard tonight, that perhaps at 4630 South Bannock Street, probably already recorded this, interim city manager. The claim is that charges have been submitted to that property above and beyond charges received by other citizens to the total of $117 annually. Can we have some understanding as to whether or not that is happening, and if so, why?
Right.
Thank you very much. That's all I have. Thank you again.
All right, thank you. And I will remind, okay, so these are further council requests. Otherwise, I'd like to move these to the end, which is what we had agreed on originally. So council member requests, Mayor Pro Tem Russell first.
My council request is for Vicki Hoffman about the utility bills that were provided to Director DeAndrea, why the district storm fee for Englewood was in that.
I think that's what
Councilmember Wing just asked.
So
Oh, was it?
we'll be sure to
apologize.
Anything
address
else?
that. Thank you.
Okay, well, no.
Okay, Councilmember Berentine?
I did do a council request. I'd just like it to be acknowledged that I asked for the advertising issue on the Airbnbs. They are not currently legal, nor is we have rules on how many people can live in a home and their relationship already in R1C, and we need to start enforcing that law. And I would like to just make a clarification so that we get specific information on the South Sanitation charge that they're experiencing over there and exactly what area gets charged that. It has come to my attention that it is possible that outside area is not being charged as much as inside, so that's where we need the comparison. So with that clarification, if you could, along with the IBA, although that's paid to an outside agency, South Sanitation is handled, is money that ends up coming to us. So what we spend that money on, and it is listed as the operation of the pipe, so I'd like to know what the maintenance and operation piece of that is.
Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you, Mayor. And mine's along the same line. The request thus far, it appears, has just been for Ms. Hoffman's bill and what seems to be, or how those charges are appearing and how they're justified, and they may be. The reports that I've received, it may be that it's wider than that and it's a bit more systematic. So I would hope that if we can find any issues or identify them beyond Ms. Hoffman's bill as well, that we can explain those better to citizens asking us about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you have one in particular that's a really hot item for everyone, and several others. Thank you. We'll go over those tomorrow in the mayor-manager meeting to make sure it was all heard. Next agenda item is agenda item 8. We have no communication, proclamations, or appointments. Agenda item 9 is consent agenda items. Could I have a motion? Actually, I know that we have some that might need to be pulled, so is anybody wanting to pull any particular? Mayor Pro Tem Russell.
I would like to pull 9A1, 9B1, and 9C2.
All right, 9B1. Sorry, I need to circle them.
9A1.
9A1,
B1.
9B1, and 9C2.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
Would you make a motion for the others and list them off, please?
I move to approve consent agenda items 9B2, 9C1.
Thank you. Could I get a second? Oh, Councilmember Cuesta.
Pardon me. 9A1 is the one I'm seeking to pull as well.
Okay, great.
A second.
Thank you. Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. So we begin with 9A1. This is the police department is recommending that City Council adopt a bill to an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement allowing the Englewood Police Department to accept forfeiture monies from the Department of Justice and the Department of Treasury by completing the federal equitable sharing agreement and certification form. And here to present is Commander Vance Fender to answer questions. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll let you kick this off.
Okay, this is on 9A1. My question is on the ordinance itself. I believe it's the sixth whereas. It says, whereas within 60 days of the city's fiscal year end, the equitable sharing agreement and certification is signed and submitted to the federal government certifying compliance with federal forfeiture guidelines. And so my question is, that 60 days is already passed from our fiscal year end. So how does that impact the passing of this ordinance? And
yes, ma'am. So as required by the prior approved ordinance regarding this equitable sharing agreement and certification, we did submit that form to the federal government, to the Department of Justice by their deadline of February 28th of 2019. So that was submitted and accepted by the Department of Justice.
so it was submitted before it came forward?
It was submitted for the year 2018.
Oh, okay.
This is for the year 2019.
Well, this is for 4 years.
Yes,
And
ma'am. So
in
yes, ma'am. So we're requesting the approval of this agreement for 2018 and the next following 3 years.
right, so they're requesting approval. The request is for fiscal years 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So council did not approve 2018.
No, ma'am. It appears as if this this ordinance expired in 2017, and the police department wasn't aware of that. So we had to come back to you with 2018, 2019, 2021, and 2022.
Okay. I find it a little bit problematic that,
I don't disagree.
okay. Thank you.
I have a question with that. Did we get 2018 or 2017 with this ordinance? You did get the forfeitures that year,
Yes, ma'am.
and this was supposed to come before us in 2018 last year.
It would appear that way. Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Berentine.
Well, that was my question. You've got revenue coming in.
Yes, ma'am.
So where did the revenue come from then?
The revenue from 2018 was from the Department of Justice.
But if we didn't sign the agreement for 2018, how did we get the revenue?
I believe it was just a continuation of the ordinance from 2017. I frankly was unaware that this was an ordinance. I did not write this agreement, so I can't answer your question to the fact that why it was not done in 2018.
So even without the agreement, they continued to give so the revenue showed up?
Yes, ma'am. So and we continued to follow all of the rules from the prior ordinance. Yes, ma'am.
And it says that it's somewhat vague, but it's equipment purchases and training is what this is for. And I believe that there's probably some guidelines that the federal government does in how you can spend this and how
There's
you
a host of guidelines on the restrictions of the
So the only thing that we have in our document is just the equipment and training, but I'm just concerned why we ran this down that far, because we usually maintain some amount of funding in here, and now we're at $368.
I would have to defer to Director Sabata. Apparently, we are supposed to actually spend that money. We're not allowed, from what I understand, to keep that money in reserves. They want us to, the federal government wants us to spend it down.
Okay. Well, since there was a doubling of the expenditures, I would like to get some more information on exactly what we spent that on, because if we're doing it for equipment and training and something happens with this money, and we need to know what kind of equipment and training we're doing so that we're using this fund.
I can tell you that what happens is when the assets get forfeited, that money, the case goes through the judicial process, and then the judicial process determines whether or not those assets can be distributed. Then what happens is once that money is distributed to the individual agencies, again, there's very strict guidelines from the federal government on what can be purchased with that. And those purchases can only be made for police operations and can't supplant what they call the general fund. And there's a board of 4 people that approve those expenditures, made up of the police chief, the city manager, the finance director, and a representative from the 18th Judicial District.
I appreciate that. In a year, we have doubled the spending of it, and I don't think that considering it wasn't even approved in 2018, I'm not sure that that was necessarily the reasoning was that we were trying to spend it down. If you say we're not supposed to maintain that in reserve, that's fine, but it's more than double in 1 year, and I'm just trying to get some additional information at some point if we could have that. I'm going to vote for this.
Well,
I appreciate it. I just
might have
wanted
misunderstood
to
your
know.
question then,
Yeah.
Council Member. So what you're requesting is actually what was purchased.
Right. What I mean, if we needed, if
I can
we
tell-
doubled it, it might be an important thing to.
Correct.
know
I
that
can
we
tell you
doubled
that on some of these, we purchased a host of rifle-rated ballistic shields with a large portion of that money last year. I can tell you that for sure.
It's just kind of a heads
Otherwise,
up
I'd have to go and I can go back and get that information.
It's kind of a heads up for the upcoming budget. If you could
Sure.
do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you. Good evening, Commander Feder. I may have had my question answered just now. So these forfeiture funds that we received from Department of Justice go into the, I'm looking for the specific name of that fund here.
Oh, the donors fund.
Yes, the donors fund. Is that fund subject to the typical purchasing policy?
Yes.
So anything over 25 would come before council?
No, that not the typical purchasing policy. We follow the purchasing policy in terms of getting, using cooperative purchasing or getting 2 bids reference, anything being over $25,000, those kinds of things. But those purchases are then approved by that governing board of the forfeiture fund.
Can you, and who sits on the governing board?
It's the chief of police, the city manager, the finance director, and a representative from the 18th Judicial District.
Thank you. This is the first time I'll have voted on one of these, and I'm going to go to the final page of the supplemental packet we received, and it line items out all of the totals of money we received, and in some cases it was just U.S. currency. For instance, one line we just received $10,000 U.S. currency. In other lines, there's vehicles. There's a 2012 Harley-Davidson, a 2009 GMC Sierra. I assume that the government at a federal level auctions these off, and then you receive the proceeds. Is that how this cash comes in? How do we receive these funds, I guess is what I'm asking.
To the best of my knowledge, we do not receive the actual item. I believe the federal government does do their auctioning or however they get the revenue. We do not get the actual item, though.
Understood. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
One more Councilmember time.
Just one quick question on the timing of the page that Councilmember Sarah was just talking about. It looks like we have some pretty consistent activity going through for the first 6 months of 2018, and then it just ends. Is that when their fiscal year ends, or did we actually just not do anything in the second half of 2018?
We actually don't control the distribution of the funds for the federal government, so I can't answer your question with any certainty at all.
So you don't know if there's like a second half of this? Is this representative of the conclusion of 2018, though?
That is the information I received from the finance department. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right. Could I have a motion to approve? 9A1. Someone, please.
I move to approve 9A1, equitable sharing IGA.
Could I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you very much. The second one is 9B1. This is the CB5 Cherry Hills Village Wastewater Connector Agreement. Staff recommends the council approve by ordinance the Cherry Hills Connector Agreement. In Littleton, Utilities Director Tom Brennan is here to present. Not really. You can introduce yourselves to all of us.
Jennifer Walker,
Thank you. And what is your position within the city?
the Utilities Manager of Administration.
Great, thank you. So questions for our representative here.
Sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem.
My question is, does this agreement include a rate increase?
Yes.
Okay, so is it a 7% increase like it was within the city, or?
It's the 7% increase, which took effect March 1st.
Okay, and so I know this doesn't apply to this. Were all the other connector districts, even though their agreement may not have come, were they notified of a rate increase also? Okay. All right. Thank you. That answers my question.
Is that it? Mayor Pro Tem, would you make a motion to approve 9B1?
I move to approve 9B1 CB5 Cherry Hills Village Wastewater Connectors Agreement.
Give me a second.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you very much. Our last one is 9C2, which is Jason Park Playground replacement. Staff is recommending that City Council approve by motion a construction contract for Singing Hills Landscape Incorporation, or Incorp, to replace the Jason Playground equipment. And Singing Hills was the lower bidder. Parks and Rec and Library Acting Director Dave Lee is here to present or answer questions. Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's good to have you here. This project looks like it's coming in less than we anticipated.
That's correct.
So my question is, how does that affect the matching funds?
That affects the matching funds in the way that we will split it 75% Arapahoe County funds and 25% of our matching funds. Currently it's at 30%, so it'll go down to 25.
Actually, that's great. So thank you.
Mayor Barrington has a question as well.
I appreciate the work that you did on this. This is nice. But I had to do a double take as well. It's less. What?
Less.
So thanks for answering her question. We don't get the money up front from Arapahoe County?
No, not on these projects, only on small grants.
Okay. So you submitted this to them August. So what was it that ended up being the difference that that the project was less in that shorter period of time?
We had 8 bidders. I think the biggest deal was this was bid out November, December. I think it was November of last year. And these companies were lining up their work for 2019. So I think they became much more competitive than, say, if we'd have bid it out today.
Oh, okay. That's nice to hear. And then the way that Arapahoe County works with the open space, does this savings in any way, can we capture that for something else? Or will they consider us more for another small project if they had, since we've kind of saved them money too, that they already agreed to spend?
No, they won't.
Okay.
They will only reimburse us for our actual charges. So if the designer's estimate and construction estimate is more than what we anticipate, the city is liable for those overages. If it's less, they keep that extra money. But our match is reduced as well.
Okay, well, remind them of that next time we do a project.
I certainly will.
Thank you very much for the work you did on this.
Councilmember Cuesta.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you as well. This is going to be wonderful. And can you provide even an estimate of the total replacement time on the park equipment and what months that'll be down for?
They anticipate to start in August and should be completed by September.
And during that point, that playground area at Jason Park is entirely unusable?
That's correct. It'll be fenced off for safety reasons.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your work on this. You all continue to bring in unbelievable grants, and we've had great experiences with this particular way of funding. I'm very thankful for Arapahoe County and what they've done. So it would be good to probably have a long list of the amount of money we've gotten over the last 5 years, because it's a really long list, a lot of money.
It certainly is, and we can provide that if you would like.
I would like to say maybe a council request is let's get an update of what the 5 years has looked like. It's really quite tremendous.
I can get it from inception as well.
Oh, great. Oh, that'd be fine.
Okay.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve Jason Park Playground replacement.
A second.
Please vote.
All votes have been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have no public hearing tonight. Under agenda item 11, we have 11C1, which is a resolution and motions, All Health Network Agreement. Staff recommends council approve by motion a contract between the Englewood Police Department and All Health Network for mental health, behavioral health science or services partnership. And here to present is Police Sergeant Reed McGrath.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Would you like me to do just an overview?
If you want to do a few-minute overview, that's great, and then we'll have questions from folks for you.
Okay. As most of you know, in the 70s and 80s, mental health was deinstitutionalized in this country and turned into a community-based mental health system. As that has happened, mental health has continued to go away in Colorado and other states. So there's been several ways to address that. One of them is crisis intervention teams. They began in the late 1980s. We began training our officers in the early 2000s. Officers are trained in crisis intervention, de-escalation skills, as well as understanding working with those suffering from mental health issues. The goal of CIT training and programs is to reduce uses of force, to better deal with people who are mentally ill, and to provide good services to the community. Recently, a current practice that's come up, a best practice, is embedded co-responders within our systems, and those co-responders are licensed clinical social workers or licensed professional counselors that respond with police officers to calls for mental health services. As we have begun to experience this, we have used them in a variety of circumstances. Code enforcement has utilized them. They are a very valuable resource for us to deal with issues like the homeless and people suffering crises in mental health issues. In about 2016, our CIT program was really at kind of a low point, and we did one referral for additional services from All Health Network. In 2017, we began to form a relationship with All Health Network and reinvent the Crisis Intervention or CIT program. During the time, Chief Collins expressed an interest in actually hiring a therapist for the police department, and we realized that the best way to do this was through a provider like All Health Network. So All Health Network, in what they are giving us, and I'll talk about that too, has a whole system of wraparound, not just an individual person. So when I talk about we got one person in 2018 and then a second person 4 days a week now, we have coverage services from All Health Network 8 hours a day with our co-responders. And what we're asking for is this $27,996 to expand the program to accommodate the 4 days a week, 8 hours a day. The 2 days a week is being paid for by the Office of Behavioral Health Funds, as well as other funding sources from All Health Network. But we believe it's so valuable that we'd like it to see 4 days a week. What comes with that is case management services beyond what we see at the police department, an entire system behind that, which includes the Walk-In Crisis Center. The Walk-In Crisis Center asked for some data. The average visit to the Walk-In Crisis Center costs $577 for self-pay. That's compared to the old system of using the emergency room. And if you follow the news lately, it's $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 easy for any ER visit that happens. So we're able to save people money and get them better services, and the services that follow them once they leave the system. Our officers are taking people to the Walk-In Crisis Center, making referrals to them. The Walk-In Crisis Center also has 24/7 phone consultation for us, so our officers in the field can make a phone call and say, we're not sure what to do with this person. Can you help us with this? Can you walk us through this? And they also have some ability to respond in the field 24/7 to assess and assist us.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Further questions for Sergeant Reed McGrath? Councilmember Quested.
Thank you, Mayor. Sergeant Reed, I noticed on the summary that the network shall provide an additional 16 hours per week to the department for 47 weeks per year. Why the 47 weeks per year as opposed to 52? 1 week of national conference for them to go to, and the other is built-in leave time, their annual leave time, sick time. Good. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem has a question.
Was this budgeted? I mean, I saw the form on here. Does this impact any of the other things that were in the budget? And I know that's not the topic, but we're still short police officers, I'm assuming.
Yes, so, and I did have that in my notes, and I just skimmed over, my apologies.
Okay.
It is in the budget for 2019. It was approved in 2019's police budget for this, and I believe Chief Collins felt like this amount of money is an extension of what police officers do and better enables us to serve the community and meet their needs. So it is in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's pretty clearly on the financial implications.
Right, it
here.
does.
Any further comment or questions? Could I have a motion to approve otherwise?
Move to approve 11C1, All Health Network Agreement.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I don't know who got to that. Councilmember Sierra. Any further discussion? I want to say that this is probably the most pivotal thing we've done to alleviate the kind of interactions police have to do with issues that really is not what we've hired them to have to be doing, which is mental health work. And I've had the joy of meeting our co-providers through the Change the Trend in our Tri-City homelessness group. They are phenomenal people. If you remember a couple of years ago, we asked for them to do this. We asked them to put some social workers on board with the police so that they would not be spending so much time doing the kind of work that really is not what they're meant to be doing. And I just really appreciate how easy this has gone. And many cities are doing this now. Co-responders is a very common thing. I think Centennial just added a couple. Aurora uses this kind of thing. So this is a trend to help alleviate so that police can focus on the things we really need to focus on. So I'll be supporting this wholeheartedly tonight. Any further comments? If not, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Great. Our second item under 11C2 is a professional services agreement for legal negotiation. Staff recommends that City Council approve a professional services agreement with Range Law LLC by regular motion, providing for assistance with matters associated with collective bargaining. Here to present is our interim city manager, Dorothy Hargrove.
Thank you, Mayor. The question before you tonight is the approval of a professional services contract for an outside law firm specializing in labor and human resources law. We negotiate every year with either the Englewood Employees Association or the Englewood Police Benefit Association, and would benefit from the experience and expertise of a legal team specializing in labor law. The efforts of staff, whether the city manager or people in HR, to negotiate these contracts has not met with the greatest of success. I think that the investment in this legal assistance will help us prevent misunderstanding, make sure that our relationships with these two associations are positive, and that the contracts that we come up with are clear at the start and mutually beneficial. So I highly recommend approval of the contract and would entertain questions if you have them.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Which union are we negotiating with this year?
The Englewood Employee Association, the General Employee Association.
And is that coming up fairly soon?
We plan to start negotiations in early summer.
Okay, and normally who's responsible for the negotiations before we decided to?
I think it was varied, but the city manager took the lead role.
Okay. All right.
Councilmember Barentine.
Well, I'll agree that the failure to effectively negotiate with the city employees, I mean, that's important, and so I like that. I think too many times it's fallen through, and we've had to go this path anyway. However, under the financial implications, I'm a little nervous about doing any kind of professional services agreement when it says we have adequate funds. I don't know.
Thank you. The difference is we're going to split it between HR and the city manager, depending on the other needs in those two professional budgets. So it wasn't, for sure a 50-50, but the city manager's professional service budget has $40,000. I frankly have no other anticipated costs that I'm aware of this year. The HR department has $25,000. I just wasn't able to identify at this point exactly how much would come out of HR and how much would come out of the city manager's budget. But
you do have a total.
we have a total of $65,000, and this contract is not to exceed 35, and I can't guarantee, but I'd like to think that it's likely that the amount that we actually pay will come in around 20.
Okay, and I would just like to make sure that that just reflects in there, the total when you're doing the financial implications, that we put it on this page so that I don't
So that's clear.
Feedback from people thinking that it's got no boundaries.
Oh, no.
Right.
Thank you. That's a good comment.
Clarification, appreciate it.
Councilmember Martinez.
This is an annual contract, correct?
Correct.
So it's just a 1 year right now?
Well, it can be renewed, but based on our need.
Sure. I just want to confirm that it's 1 year. I think it makes sense, especially since we're in city manager transition. I think it's a really smart move for us to have a independent third party handle it this year and see how it goes, and then possibly even maybe in the future.
Exactly. Thank you.
Councilmember Barrington, do you have another question?
Well, I need a clarification from what you just answered for.
Well, it's a 3-year contract
Right.
that can be canceled within 30 days by notice of either party.
Okay, but we don't negotiate this every year, because in the documentation here, it's every other year we do a different organization, so
Right.
it can't just be a year contract.
Well, what we're committing to is a 1 year with 2 years extension if you want to continue that.
For negotiation purposes.
Correct.
That we set the price.
Yeah, but it's not we would recommend continuing it.
3 years.
So if it worked, yes.
All right.
Yeah, could I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve 11C2.
Second.
Thank you. And further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
All votes been cast. Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're at agenda item 12, which is general discussion. First up is mayor's choice. I have a couple of things. So sorry about the coughing tonight. We have, I think Councilmember Sierra requested that we have a budget sort of overview of what Parks and Rec would cost if we did everything that we want to do in the next 5 or 10 years. And I'd like to request, and I think this probably is already being done, I want to make it more public with our city manager and others, that we have a little bit better understanding of what our infrastructure needs are also for the next 5 years in terms of public works and some of the storm drainage things that we think are beginning to surface, that we have a really clear idea when we go through the budget process. If we have to go to the ballot on these, that we have it in time to be able to put it on the ballot if we need citizens to do something differently.
Staff is planning and has on the tentative study session agendas that we discuss these very topics on the 22nd of April.
Great.
And we've saved that both for capital projects and any potential bond issues and regular capital budgeting, but that's the topic for that conversation.
And in that conversation, it will also have what the different options are for funding, for revenue
Exactly.
generation. I think that I'm getting calls from public saying, what do we do to actually think this through and have a little bit more public process so that if some citizens like the parks folks want to put it on something on the ballot, if others would want to come forward to put something on the ballot, what would be needed, or at least what the council itself is talking about, so it's all really clear. So great, April 22nd is the...
And staff is already working on the capital requests.
Thoughts, and I'm just trying to make it public, so thank you
That's
very
fine.
much
Thank you for asking.
for allowing me to do that. I also want to really encourage all of us as council to talk with the folks that come out either in the these evenings or the emails that we get that are from our district that somehow think that every single one of us should respond to them when they email us. I don't think that we can all the time, and I think if we can help our own constituents, each one of our district, understand what our roles are, that when an at-large can be really helpful too. And try and make sure that each of us is responding. And I guess we've never had that conversation with all of us that I'm assuming that when someone emails us from someone's district that they're responding to them. I assume that's true, but when you do your council member time tonight, if you could suggest, if that's how you're viewing it and whether you have another way of viewing it, I just want to make sure we're not missing anybody. And yeah, I don't want to miss anybody in the process, but I also do not think all 7 of us should respond to every single email that comes. And I think we should be really careful about setting ourselves up to have to be doing that as well. We'd probably say different things, or it might not be helpful in the long run for whoever district it is. My third thing is to make sure you look at the dates that were sent out by Krista Gravy this last week. There were a number of dates on there. Thank you for agreeing to meet next Wednesday for the EAF interviewing that we're going to do for the firms we're looking at, but there are a number of other dates as well going through the month of March. So just look at those again. My fourth thing is the Englewood Chamber Gala is Tuesday night next week. I want to encourage you to go to that. It's got limited seating, so you have to really get in now if you're wanting to do that. Just didn't want you to get cut off with that. Also, the Chamber is in the process of starting to interview for replacing the executive director, and they're in the throes of that now, I believe, and they will have someone soon in the spring. I also would like to follow up with the South Metro Chamber because we haven't really been engaged with them as a council, and I'm not sure what the relationship is with our own Englewood. So I will do some follow-up for that and get back to you all. If anybody's interested in that as well, I'd be glad to have you join me if you want to have a meeting of any sort. I think that's it for tonight. So next, council member choice. Who would like to start us? Annie End, and all right, I'll start with council member Wink. And we'll go
no reports.
And then we'll go like that. Or none? No. Okay, Councilmember Barentine.
We had the Englewood Housing Authority meeting, and there are some very serious issues that I brought to their attention about traditions. So they have a contract with that property that allows that property to be tax exempt. The tax exemption on that property is in the exchange that they will accept Section 8 so that they have a wider range of places that they can place Section 8. There are some extremely serious problems going on with the tradition. This is only 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old. There's mold, melted furnaces, fire issues, backed up plumbing where they're not getting the carpets cleaned afterwards. The carpets still haven't been cleaned from fecal matter coming out of toilets and running into carpets in common areas since December. That's unacceptable. I have asked the Englewood Housing Authority to look at their contract with Traditions. A similar contract was done with the Foundry with Coma Lofts, I think the Delaware property, 4 or 5 properties. And that takes a lot of money out of the pockets of the city, the school districts, the county, the state, when we make properties tax exempt. So we want to make sure we're getting a bang for our buck, and we certainly don't want to put anybody who's has an income issue and put them into an unsafe and unhealthy situation. So part of the concern over there is that they're a little reticent to complain because they want to have a roof over their head. And I understand that, but I don't think that we should ever condone putting people in unsafe, unhealthy conditions and also have them be afraid that they're going to lose their home. So that's not a situation that I want to be in. So I wanted to make you guys aware that I've asked them to look at their contract and see if they have any sway with them to go ahead and get these things taken care of. Also the issues of how the city participated or did not participate in the inspections during the building of this building and the repairs that they have done, and whether they're pulling permits and whether somebody is going out there and making sure that these are safe conditions, that the wiring is correct, that the replacement of any furnaces, things like that, that it's being done correctly. Nobody's going to feel good if that place starts on fire and we lose any lives. So I want to make sure that we're following up on our end as well. So they just had their meeting, as I said last time. They're off meeting because of the budget And so they won't, their next meeting won't be until April. And then Councilmember Martinez and I attended we're the liaisons for the school, and we attended with the city manager. Thank you very much, Dorothy, for attending with us. And Tina Prang was there. I think she's still the chair of the school board, along with the president, sorry. And then another member was there. I'm so sorry. Who was that?
Sharon Sheminsky
Yeah.
and Dr. Wendy Rubin.
Thank you, so I don't butcher her name. And then Wendy Rubin was there. And they brought up some concerning issues on response from the police and kind of how they would like to partner better with the police department. We agreed to get some information on some specific incidents, just to give some example on how we can, where we might be falling short or where we might be having some communication problems. And then in general, just trying to find some ways for us to partner better with the schools so that that population is safe and being well responded to. And I think that I'll let Councilmember Martinez fill in on her portion of it, but it was my belief that they were going to go ahead and give us a breakdown of what that meeting bullet points were so that we could share that with this council, and that maybe we can, in the future, as a council, look at some of the issues that they're concerned about and how we can best address those. The alley conditions have been a very hot topic, and I would like to get, as a council request, the maintenance for the grading, not just the grading, but the placement of road base. And that's the concern, is that everything is now just mud, and everybody's asking me why there isn't any stone, there's no road base, there's no rock being laid, and how long that's been going on that we have not been doing that. Picture after picture after picture of alleys, and it's just dirt. I mean, so how we've changed the maintenance over the last couple of years and why we're not putting material down. There's actually been a few people in my district that have actually laid gravel in their own alleys and then respectfully asked for it not to be graded because all it would do is take all of their material away, and it happened anyway. So if we could get a little follow-up on what's happened with that maintenance and why that piece of it's changed. And then the code for snow, I've had a problem over on Cherokee. I really would like to see the code enforcement issue. I think they did a very good job with the code for snow that they were coming forward. We all liked it and the work that they were doing. So I'd like to see some of that come forward. This is based off the piece that they did in communication to with the magazine. And it says that you cannot take the snow and put it off your property. You're not supposed to put it in the street. You sure as heck aren't supposed to dump it on anybody else's property. And so I'd like to see some of that come forward again. And two, code enforcement's being put on hiatus. I'm still concerned because I've gone over the code again, and I don't see that they've violated anything in the code as it is currently written, nor do I think that it's confusing. Nonetheless, usually we would solicit that board's feedback on the suggestions we were making, and I would suggest that we at least hear from code enforcement on what they've been publicly accused of so that they have an opportunity to speak to the issue. And I also think that when you have volunteers working on a board, that it's only courtesy to go ahead and run the changes that we're going to do past them as well for their input. So I would leave that as a suggestion. I think that this is looking very, very punitive, and I don't think we're going to do as good a job or have as robust conversation if we don't include the board that that has to do the work. That's all I have.
Councilmember Cuesta?
Thank you, Mayor. Your original question regarding replying to emails, and maybe that's better for a study session, but I know I try and respond to all of them, even outside of district, so that if folks come up here, we don't get people saying, I emailed and nobody, emailed me back. And so that to me is our worst case scenario. Somebody comes up and say that. And so for that sole purpose, I do my best to reply to all of them, even if it's outside of district. I would like to touch on Tammy Williams again at 4188 South Washington. I know that this is a recurring event, but she did send out that police report from the assault that took place in 2018. And this is the police officer's description. It's pretty heavily redacted. But there was a woman that was struck several times by a man who was just renting that house for a couple days. He stole a car from that block as well. And these are things we're inviting into the neighborhood. And again, this is a guy who doesn't even live in the state. I feel like really dragging down the quality of life for that entire neighborhood, not just Miss Williams. And we can't seem to find any resolve to it. And again, poor Miss Williams has to show up here bi-weekly and point out how things just aren't getting better, and in some cases seem to be even going further downhill. And I'm really hoping if it's that Airbnb route that we can get something there, or if not, that there's somewhere we can find that there must be a violation taking place. I feel like so. I appreciate her persistence. We've got to get our arms around this because I feel like we are not. And again, it makes us look toothless. I think that everybody here is aware of it. Everybody knows it's happening, and there's really no resolve at this point. On a bit of a melancholic note, people up here might be familiar with Edwards Pipe and Tobacco. It's a shop at 3441 Broadway, kind of an Englewood institution. I know when I turned 18 and graduated high school, I bought a cigar there. I'm just about to crash into 40, so that's how often I've been going there. I go there rarely, but when both my daughters were born, several other monuments in my life, and I know a lot of other folks that went there. One of the owners, Brian Reed, I believe it's a gentleman's last name, unexpectedly passed away over the weekend, which is really, really too bad. I think there's some uncertainty on the shop and when they're going to reopen. But again, that's been a really community-centered place. There's an authenticity you can find there that I think is rare anymore in businesses. And I can't tell you how many times I walked in there and just saw all walks of life and a really, really great place. So here's the passing of Mr. Reed, and hopefully they can get those doors open again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Wow. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. And a couple of the things that I was going to bring up is the alley situation, and I'm not going to belabor that because I think that's been covered pretty well. Also, Tammy Williams, I would like to see if we can pursue that as a nuisance property. Also, and I do believe the other thing has already been asked about whether we can do something to impact the advertising piece of it. Also, I have another question, and this is regarding the council requests that were answered on February 14th. I had a request for an employee census from 2012 to 2018, provided originally on 8/28. When I went back to look through my stuff, I couldn't find anything. And actually in the council request, it doesn't show that it was ever answered on 8/28. I mean, it's been answered now, and I remember seeing some of this information. But my concerns is one of the things that were said is that there has been a 25% turnover rate in employees. And so how are we resolving the issues that we've had with that since August 28th? And then also another concern that I have in what came out on the 14th, it shows that in the police department, it says police officer 1, 2, 3, and 4. Does that mean there are 4 police officers?
My understanding is that that's the classification of the police officer. Police officer step 1 is the highest level, right? And a police officer 4 is the newest member of the force.
Okay, but it's only 1 police officer that you're short, or vacancies?
That's I'd have to look at the document to be sure and answer that. But
okay, but all right, and that's fine. The other
We don't
things
have
that
4
are
vacancies.
under, I believe, the police budget are a dispatcher, fire inspector, and a code enforcement officer.
Those were the new positions approved in the budget, is my understanding.
Okay, so those are current, they're not vacancies in addition to the things that were.
Correct.
Okay, so we are working on that. So that my questions are, do we still have staff positions that will not be filled, that will not be filled, that were approved in prior budgets?
Let's make that a council request.
Yes, council request. And also, how are we resolving the issues with the 25% turnover in staff in all areas?
Could I repeat that? The question is, do we have unfilled positions, and what is the nature and extent of turnover?
Or how are we resolving the nature and extent of turnover? And I guess, in other words, if it's better now than that, or if it's worse now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is that it, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, it is.
Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. I just want to recap a little bit from our subcommittees with the school district. We had a really great meeting, talked about a lot of great ways that we can partner and be better partners and improve our relationship. Talked about possible opportunity for park improvement in one area. We talked about the police relationship. A couple other things. Really, that's about it that I want to share at this point. We will be meeting again in April and hopefully having more regular meetings. Once we get the recap put together, we will share that with all of council, so you have that as well. And possibly do a meeting with both groups in full. We had that probably maybe 2 years ago, but I don't think we've done that since this council has been together. So we will plan on that. Also, about the emails, I try to respond to as many emails and phone calls as I can. I'm sure I miss some here and there. But my question to the group is, when we get, how should we handle the emails that come through to all of council that go through the city manager's office to that one email? We talked about it some time ago that those were already under the assumption when they were forwarded to us that somebody had responded to them. But that was before the transition in our city manager, so maybe it's time that we revisit that together. And that's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Sierra.
Quite a few things. So I'll start off with the alleys just because it's been brought up a couple times tonight. But I've been working with some constituents over the past few weeks regarding some of the alley conditions off of Sherman, Logan, and I've been in discussions with Director DeAndre on this. So we actually do have a community meeting that we scheduled for the 19th from 5 to 7 here in the community room. And it's going to be a combination of Director DeAndre, Director Powers, and Chief Building Officer Karen Montanez. And so we're going to just have a discussion just based off some of the conversations we've had with constituents about what they're seeing, some of the problems that are rising in their alleys. And I'm not sure exactly how the agenda is going to flow, but basically I believe we're going to start off by just answering some of the common issues that we're seeing with the alleys within the city. Talk to that, and then we have 2 hours, so there's going to be plenty of time for Q&A. So there's been about 10 issues that have come up that we're seeing in each of the alleys within my district, which I believe should be happening across all of Englewood. So I think it would be a good opportunity for everybody to understand what we're doing in the short term, what we're going to be doing in the long term for the alleys, and somehow for the people that aren't able to attend, communicate that out to everybody about what was accomplished during that meeting, what's on the parking lot, and what we'll answer at a later date. So that's going to be on the 19th, so I believe that's next in a couple of Tuesdays from 5 to 7 in the community room. So we'll work on a way to communicate that out.
The District 1 forum that you're doing, right?
Oh, no, we're going to open this up.
But you initiated this as part of your own district?
Right,
because
exactly.
you didn't consult with us about date or anything?
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Right. So that's the first point. I also wanted to, and actually this has to do with I believe I made a council request on this, I did. So it was regarding the homeowners improvement let me see here. Let me find the right wording on this. So it was the Homeowners Improvement Assistance Program for the city manager. And so we're no longer doing it just because of some new bank regulations. Arvada seems to still do it, but I just have some further questions on it. Was Englewood, when we participated in this program, were we doing this? Was it a low interest rate that we were providing to citizens or a no interest rate to citizens?
I'd have to investigate.
Okay. So that's a council request for that. And then I guess just open it up and to find out, does it make sense for us to try to reinstate this program? First instance of need, if there is a requirement, or if we are hearing from citizens that would like to make improvements to their home and would just like some sort of benefit for the city to go down that route. So just a little bit more information on that. I also was able to attend the production of the pillar on the roof. It was a joint production between the Englewood High School and the Englewood Middle School, or ELA as well. I was very impressed by the quality, just the production of the show. I went this past Friday night, and I was just really impressed by some of the talent that we have in the city. So great job for everyone that was involved in the production. It was just a good show. So I believe there may be another spring production at a later time. I don't have any information on it, but based on what I saw, I definitely would attend against them. Great job there. And then last point is just for council is I am going to be, for spring break, I'm going to be on vacation. So that's going to be the, what is it, that 26th? Is that what the Monday is?
March 25th.
Whatever that Monday.
Are you going, are you talking about a
25th,
Monday night? It's a 25th.
So I'll be out the 25th, so I actually leave on vacation on the 24th. Oh, you're right. Is that right?
Yes. Thank you. Would you mind if
Yeah,
I
that's
ask
right.
if
Yeah,
anybody
that is-
else is going to be gone? Is that your last item?
That is my
anybody
last.
else planning to be gone for spring break on the 25th, just so we know we have a quorum that night? Okay, we're fine. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could.
Oh,
I just wanted to add to our meeting, I think we kind of promised them for the school. There was a for sale sign on the property over at the old alternative high school property, and I got several calls from people thinking that the school was selling that property. Actually, some rogue person just put a sign on their property, and they have no intention of selling that. They had come to us and committed that they would let that be part of that, an extension of that park area, and that is still their commitment. So I had pictures sent to me and everything, so I publicly want to let people know it's not being sold. And I would be remiss not to give a shout out, thank you, to our citizen, or our sales tax people. Les Sealing greatly appreciates the way that he was treated when he got a bill in mistake, and wanted me to say thank you to them. And so I just wanted to make sure and do that. Thank you.
thank you. Next up is city manager's report.
No report tonight.
Thank you. And how about city attorney's report? Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Unbelievable.